Now, of all the big time stories and projects that you broke throughout your years, do you have a personal favorite?
There's a few, but one that, and probably along, it was a favorite because it was something I hadn't tried before. Mm-hmm. And it's something, obviously, a subject you're very familiar with from your time with the Bucks. But we did a series, kind of like a 30 for 30 podcast series. It was during COVID when we got it done, called the Giannis Draft. And it was about, I had gotten to know Giannis through his agent, Alex Aratzis, early on in Milwaukee. He wasn't a phenomenon the first couple of years. He was an interesting draft pick. It was an interesting story. And he was a skinny young kid, but it wasn't like the world was descending on Milwaukee to chronicle him in year one. It wasn't quite like that. Nope. And fairly quickly changed. And so the beginnings of the Giannis thing was always very interesting to me. And so we did kind of a 3-part podcast series. I think each was about 45 minutes. And I narrated it, wrote the script, worked with my editor, Christina Douglas, who happened to also be Greek and really knew Greek music, and helped score it, the audio of it, which was really, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do that. And her and Andrew Hahn, we worked on it, but it was different, and I hadn't done it, and it was a fun challenge. And what made it, there were so many people. It was about sort of his emergence in Greece and who he was and where he came from and the forces that allowed him to start to get noticed. And then the NBA trying to figure out who he was, how seriously do we take this kid? How good could he be? And Wes Wilcox and Danny Ferry in Atlanta, Kenny Atkinson was an assistant on their staff, and all of them at different points went over to see him. And, Atlanta was like Milwaukee, like John Hammond and Jeff Weltman. Jeff left before they drafted Giannis. He left that spring for Toronto, but Jeff had been very involved in the kind of recognizing there was something special there. And so anyway, doing that whole audio podcast series, which I remember I was supposed to sit down with Giannis we had a couple different dates right before, it must have been February, because it was March when the world shut down, and we had to kind of shelve it until we could figure out what was going to happen with the bubble. And then once we got in the bubble, Giannis and I and we did, and we sat down, and he was incredible. He was incredible because he has such incredible recall of events and an incredible attention to detail. Mm-hmm. And we had done so much interview work, and I was bringing him a lot of material that I wasn't sure whether he would remember some of these stories or not. And not only did he remember them, he remembered them just full Technicolor detail, right? And that's what really made having his voice in it was pretty neat. And so what he brought to it. And so that was a really fun project for me, because it was different than anything I had done before that.